Welcome back to Onwards and Upwards, everybody. I've been thinking of making this video for several years, but I just never got around to it. So I want to tell a story from about 2017, several years ago now. And the story involves getting lost in the woods. Like some of you may know, getting lost in the woods is a pretty intense experience, and it's quite frightening, and you never forget it. It's just one of those things that that terror, that feeling of just sheer terror and fear, knowing that if you don't figure it out, you could have a really, really tough time ahead. I don't know if any of you have watched this show called I Shouldn't Be Alive. And I think maybe this experience got me quite into this show later on in life because, people get in these near-death experiences in the woods and they just tell their story. It's like a dramatic reenactment, but I have a bit of a cold right now, so if my voice sounds odd, it's because of that. So this experience I want to share with you guys today took place in around 2017 in the Monashee Mountains in British Columbia. The location was roughly in between Revelstoke and Vernon, if you guys know it. There's no trail up the mountain. There's logging roads though. My dad had heard of this hike in the past. I heard stories about it that at the top, when you're walking along this ridge, along this meadow, it's like you're in the sunlit uplands. It's like really beautiful views with wildflowers and that sort of thing. So I was just getting into hiking at the time, and I'd brought out a friend from Montreal, from high school. So we're out there staying in the woods. So we thought we'd do this hike as a day trip. So it wasn't too complicated. We were going to drive up the logging roads to this clear cut. And once we got to this clear cut, we were going to cut straight up and just bushwhack to the top. It was easier said than done for sure. So my dad dropped us off at the clear cut. He left. So I forget the timing exactly, but let's say he dropped us off at 8 in the morning and then he was going to pick us up at 5 p.m. We had enough time, we had a plan. If we were a bit more careful, there would have been no danger, no problems. But the thing is that when you're going off the trail and you're not going on an established path, not in a park, there are a lot more inherent risks that I think are good to be aware of. What it comes down to is if you do get lost, there's nobody there. There's nobody going to be there. Obviously, just the fact that my dad knew where we started the hike, if we were to have gotten more seriously lost, it would have been fine because, the search teams would know that specific area we were in. In any case, I hope you like my map of British Columbia up here. So where we were is around here, somewhere in here, like Rocky Mountains are here. So we started the hike, and pretty soon after starting the hike, we realized that it was not what we expected. It was thick broom or broom-like branches on a steep cliff. Because it was so steep, we just held on to the broom. It was quite the rugged adventure. So for about half an hour, we're just going straight up this steep cliff, basically, and we're just holding onto these roots, going one route to the other, going up to the top. It leveled out a bit, and we got to this clearing, and it was a meadow-like. There were some wildflowers, and we just kept going for a while, hiked a couple hours. The views were amazing. I'll put a couple photos, actually, from the hike, because I think we do have some photos. Getting up there was fine. It was getting back that was the problem. So after walking around the top of the ridge for a while, we just eventually decided, it was time to turn around. That's what we did. And the major error, I think, was not making a clear sign of where we got up to the ridge. We should have, got some tape and really marked in our minds, okay, that's the log where we came up. So we ended up going back down the steep embankment too early. And because we did this, it threw everything out of whack. Our entire assumption of the hike was that we would go back down to this clear cut, but this clear cut was at the end of the road, and it turns out we were going straight down and we're going to miss the clear cut because we did not go far enough back to where we started to even hit the clear cut. So there we were going straight down this cliff. Just like when we came up, we're holding on to these roots, holding on to the roots, going one route to the other. And, it's quite precarious, quite a treacherous descent. But eventually it leveled out into the forest. And by this point, my friend and I were thinking, this is not right. Something's wrong here. So we thought about it, and at this point, we're just in the forest, on this mountainside. Across a couple creeks, we head down for a while, and my friend, I'll just call him Zed for this video, looks down and he just has a feeling, I think we should go down. Like, I think down is the way. I think it's going to lead us there. We keep going down for maybe 15 minutes. We're talking to each other about what's happening. I think we're we're obviously trying to not make a big deal about it because we've only been lost for about an hour and a half at this point. For some of that time, we didn't even know we were lost. At a certain point, you realize that you're not going to hit the place you thought you were going to go. You've already gone well past it. I think there's degrees to it. It's not like right away we thought, oh, we're in a survival situation, and we never ended up being in a survival situation. And there would have been many ways to resolve our situation. The logging roads were few and far between, and also once you do hit the logging roads, you don't necessarily know your orientation very well. Lots of the logging roads there are decommissioned, so it's not like you'll be seeing trucks passing all the time. For example, that is why you want to bring a compass. We keep hiking downhill a bit. We stop and sit down by this stream. I remember us just sitting there, and I remember telling my friend, I think we should start heading this way. It's got a feeling. He heeded my advice. We continued up this hill for probably about 20-30 minutes at least, and we came upon this logging road. I just knew this is the logging road we drove up. This is it. I think we just made it. I think this is what we're looking for. So if I was right in my assumption, we'd just hike up the road, and then we'd see the end of the road, this big clear cut, and that's where we started the hike. So we sort of did this big loop up the mountain. We cut down past the clear cut, completely missed it. We're lost in the woods for a while, then eventually found the road again that zigzagged all the way up to the clear cut. By this time, it's probably about 6 in the afternoon. So it's well after the meeting time we established. So I remember just going up each bend of the logging road, not totally sure if this was the right place, but I had a strong feeling that this was it. I recognized it vaguely. And eventually we turned the final corner, and we saw my dad's, at the time he was renting a minivan, and there it was. The immense feeling of relief upon seeing the minivan was just remarkable. My dad was expecting us to come down from the clear cut. If we didn't get lost, we would have come down that way. And so he was surprised when we yelled out at him, and we were coming up the road that he had just driven up as well. But obviously he was just happy to see us. And it's the only time he ever did this, but that hike in particular, he brought up a couple beers. So we had 2 cans of Kokanee, classic BC beer. And because he'd been waiting so long, he got the cans of Kokanee and put them in the glacial stream. From the coast range in Vancouver to the Rocky Mountains, there's lots of glaciers and there's lots of mountain springs just coming from the earth, chill water. So while he was waiting for us, he put the beers in the stream. So we had a can of Kokanee each, and when we finished the beer, we drove back down to where we were staying. Everything turned out really well. It was a very memorable time. The point is, it could have been much, much worse. We could have been seriously lost. Odds are, unless we really made some grave mistakes in terms of direction, we probably would have found the road. We might have had to walk, 8 hours. We might have had to spend the night there, and imagine the nightmare it would have been for my dad. I think the moral of the story is that always pay attention to where you're going, where you've been, and when you get to a pivotal point in a trail, bring something to mark it so that this is where I need to turn. If anybody else has a story of getting lost in the woods, make sure to share that in the comment section, because these stories are fascinating, and I think the psychology of them, the sheer power of how they linger on in our memory, is quite profound. When you know that your next decisions could be the difference between sleeping in a nice, comfy bed that night or potentially sleeping in the forest overnight with no camping equipment and not enough food. There's a certain mindset involving panic, terror, fear, and resourcefulness. I would say a certain part of the mind clicks on that where you just know that this is important. This is not fun and games. This is where you need to come forth and put your best foot forward to really do what you can to be smart. But I think you learn from it a lot, and you learn navigational skills, and I would say in these situations too, a lesson that sticks with you is to always trust your gut, trust your intuition. So once again, I want to say, if you have a story of you getting lost in the woods, make a comment and I'll be happy to read it, because these stories are very interesting to me, and hopefully you got something of value from this video. Happy hiking, everybody. Keep going onwards and upwards and all that stuff. With that being said, have a great day, and like the video and share it with your friends if you enjoyed it. See you next time on Onwards and Upwards.